Hey everybody, Neil at the Academy here. Today I have something a little different. Counters. I don't talk about counters very much, and as I have mentioned in previous videos, I'm not much of a counter guy. I'm more of a clip as I go. Not really obsessive about counters, but I get it. The system is about counters. Those are the playing pieces. And there are thousands and thousands of them, and people love to discuss their counters. So I am going to jump into, at least in this video and maybe a future video, as I've alluded to before, talking about counters. In this case, broken ground design counters. And unfortunately, they were shipped to me and they were damaged, and the envelope was actually ripped open, and some of the counters fell out somewhere between my house and Canada. I don't know where they are. And to Alan's credit, he shipped me 2 replacements, so thank you very much to him. And while I was at it, I picked up a few other knickknacks, nationalities. I picked up some Allied Minor, some Polish, and some, I think he called them extra sheets, which has a little bit of everything on them. I don't think I'm going to go through all the counters. I'm just going to throw up a few of the sheets, talk about what I like, what I don't like. I mean, nothing is perfect, and maybe give a recommendation, or I might save the recommendation for the comparison video I'm going to do with all the third-party counters that are available and the multi-man counters, which we are all familiar with. So let's jump into the Japanese counters here. I really like, the first thing I like about the Japanese counter set is the color. It is yellow, which we're used to with multi-man publishing, but they are a different color yellow. Let me see if I can show the difference here. They are a little bit more, they're more subdued. I actually like this, the broken ground design color, better than the multi-man publishing. This is more of a subdued yellow. I like it a lot. That's the first thing I noticed about the Japanese counter is the color. Love it. The first thing I noticed about the broken ground design counters that I did not like is the typography on the, at least on the vehicle counters, the 5/8 inch counters, on the what type of vehicle or gun it is. Very hard to read. Even with my reading glasses on, it's a very small type, very thin type. Like this I can read very easily. Type 95, Hago, light tank. Some of these other ones, this is a type 98 or 98, I think. Shi-Ki or Shi-KE. They're really hard to read. I don't like the size and font. Very, very small. If that was the one thing I would change about these, would be to, I don't know where you'd put it though. I mean, information is pretty tight because if you compare to multi-man publishing, at least, you can see a lot of the other text is actually bigger. You know, the gun size, armor ratings are slightly bigger and easier to read. So I don't know if you could actually increase the size of the description of the type of vehicle or gun it is. It's just kind of jammed in there and really difficult to read, which I don't like. Other than that, I do like the counters, at least aesthetically. Let's jump to, let's flip to the back. Black is pretty standard. They do have color overhead views, which I like. I believe personally that all ASL counters should adopt color vehicle and gun type, and even infantry silhouettes. I like that. I understand multi-man publishing's, I guess, stance on it, in that black or white on color is probably cheaper to print than colors, at least as far as the silhouette goes. So there's probably a little bit of cost savings here, but I like the look of full colored vehicles and guns and infantry silhouettes. Speaking of infantry silhouettes, let's take a look at what the Japanese infantry look like. Do I have a Japanese infantry unit out? Yes, I do, from Multi-Man Publishing. I'll put it down here at the bottom. You can see much easier to read on the broken ground design. Again, the silhouettes are color, maybe not full color, but they are color. The broken ground design uses blue as their kind of unit identifier, you know, A, B, C, etc. On some of the colored nationalities, that is a little hard to see, to be honest. And I guess blue isn't always used. I have some over here on the side that are red, but on the Japanese, they're using blue. I thought I saw some other nationality where it was, yeah, okay, it was on let me pop it up here real quick. This is one that was kind of damaged. It's falling apart, but I didn't lose any counters from this sheet. You can see this is the olive drab U.S. Marine Corps, which I also like a lot. I really like this color, but blue is used on the unit identifier, and that's kind of hard to see on this green, olive drab green background. Let's go back to the counters are already falling to pieces. Go back to the Japanese, which are also falling to pieces. These were also in that envelope. You can probably tell where it got hit right up here. Information on these counters are done a little bit differently, mainly with smoke exponent and this white morale level. The white morale level, I have a cheat sheet around here somewhere. The white morale level, according to their cheat sheet, indicates units which are fanatic, where they have a morale 1 higher than they normally have. So up here we have 448s, normal, Japanese elite. Down here we have 449 elite with a morale level 1 higher. So they actually have replacements for the morale level being 1 higher. Instead of putting a fanatic counter on your counter, you just pull out one of these, and the white morale level indicates that it's fanatic. And there are other things that are a little bit different. The white smoke exponent 2 in this case simply indicates it's a smoke exponent. If you look down here, if it has a black background with a number for the smoke exponent, that indicates it's something like an assault engineer. A little bit different than multi-man publishing. Is it a little more complicated? Probably. They probably could have just stuck with simple exponents and put, AE on the counter instead of having to track color of exponent, smoke exponents. Let's put up the olive drab Americans. I'm not going to put up the one I had that's falling apart. Let me put up this infantry here. Okay, same sort of thing, same color scheme as far as fanatic morale level, smoke exponent to colored background for assault engineers, white for normal type units. Really like the color. Do not like the blue unit identifiers on here. Could be difficult to read, but other than that, the numbers, the firepower, range, and morale level, very easy to read. One other thing I noticed about these counters is, well, 2 things. Aesthetically, I generally like them. Very easy to read and see, other than, this color and the size of the text on vehicles. Nearly impossible to read, unfortunately. But, they sacrifice that size to increase the font size of all the other things to make those easier to read. But a couple other things I noticed that I don't like. One, the die cutting on these, especially on the 1/2 inch counters, are good and bad. The corners are pretty good. In other words, if you trim these up, they're going to trim very well, as opposed to what I've experienced with critical hit counters. Bad in that there's terrible registration between different counters. Here's an example. Let me get out my tweezers to show you. Look at this counter here and this counter. Look at the width of the die cut of this counter versus this counter. Maybe we can zoom in here. Right here, these two, the 459 and the 458. They are completely different widths. Meaning this width is off because you have to fit between this width. So once one gets off, it shifts all the others, and they're going to be off too. And you may think, well, why is that a problem? Well, it's a problem if you're playing with physical components and you have that much disparity in the width of counters, and you go to pick up a stack, what you're going to pick up is the thickest width. The rest are going to be left behind or not get picked up very well. If you're playing with stacks that are using physical components, you want consistent width, X and Y, depending on which way you're going to pick it up, of all your counters. So when you pick up a stack, you're going to grab all of them, not just the biggest one in the stack. Unless that biggest one happens to be on the bottom of the stack, in which case you will probably be able to lift all of them. It's the top of the stack, you're only going to pick that one up. You're going to miss all of the counters beneath it that are happen to be a little bit thinner. So consistency with die cut width, X and Y, is really critical on physical components. And these, especially the, like I said, the half-inch counters, maybe I can get a shot down here. Some of them are pretty well aligned, some of them are just way off. Yeah, you can see it right there, right in the center there. Width is way off. And I believe that is the same. If you put up another, say if I bring this Japanese up in that same area, I think we would see, yeah, right here. So they're using the same, obviously the same die cut. So you're going to see the same problems on all these sheets that's using the same die pattern. You're going to see the same width difference on every counter sheet, whether it's the half-inch version or the 5/8 inch version. Don't like that. That could cause a big problem. Not a problem, just a headache. It's just a pain in the butt if all your counters are slightly different size. The other thing I noticed is maybe you can get I can get a shot of it here. So the way counters are done is it's cardboard stock, and then the graphics are glued on in some way on the front and the back, allowed to dry for some period of time, and then it's fed through a machine. After it's dried, it's fed through a machine and goes through a die cutter that registers off of some feature on here. Maybe it's the corners. Sometimes the counter sheets will have actually alignment graphics that the machine can align on, and it does a punch. Depending on how it's laminated together is going to dictate how well it's going to take to punching or die cutting. And in this case, you can see there's a lot of deformation. I don't believe these were wavy before they were die cut. You can see how wavy they are. They're not really smooth right here. So when the die cut comes in, there's deformation around where it's actually cut, and that's probably a process of the gluing process and the drying process, how long it's dried, and how the die cut is being done. Like I said, the corners are generally good. These should trim up really nicely, but everything else, the registration can be off. Like I pointed out over here, there's some waviness and deformation on the glue layer between the graphics and the cardboard stock. I don't think you see it as much on the back. That's pretty typical to see on the back from almost any die cutting process, that type of deformation. But the fronts are very, very wavy, and I'm not a huge fan of that. I want them to be smooth. If I'm playing with counters and I'm paying for them, I want them to be nice and smooth and looking good. But overall, I actually really like the look, the layout, the color. They look great. Just some issues to be worked on. Now let's take a look at what 5/8 look like. These are Allied Minor. You can see 5/8, not much of a problem. There's much less waviness. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's just because the die cutting is spaced further apart and it's putting less stress on each individual counter when they're doing the die punch. And the registration, if you look down here, you know, size compared from one to the other is much better than the half-inch counters. The 5/8 inch counters look actually way better than the half-inch counter, other than, like I said, this tiny, tiny, tiny text, which is nearly impossible to read. That's my only gripe about these. But other than that, the 5/8 inch look are really good. Really good. Like I said, I really love the olive drab U.S. Marine Corps. Look great. Love the color, as well as the Japanese yellow. Really like that yellow color. Let me just put up a few others from this sheet. Now here's something interesting here. I don't know. Okay. This is the extra sheets. They're called extras, and it's just got a little bit of everything. This yellow is different than this yellow. So if you order up these extras, which maybe have vehicles and guns that aren't in the normal Japanese order of battle counter sheet, they're different colors. I have no idea why. This is more of a traditional, multi-man publishing yellow. And these are the slightly more muted yellow, which I actually prefer. But if you mix broken ground counters from this sheet that you happen to use with this, they're going to be different colors. And I don't know why these Japanese. Maybe these were done before or after and he changed. I don't know the history. This says 2019. This says 2021. Maybe he changed the color code for these to be more like Multiman Publishing yellow for the Japanese. Nothing major, just something I noticed that there's color discrepancies between the sheets representing the same nationality. That's it for the counters. I have other counters here. I've got some Polish counters here. Let me just put those up. It says 2020. I wonder if these die cuts look better. Maybe the die cut process got changed at some point, because these say 2020 down here, if you can see down here. The other one said 2019, I believe it was. Over here where there was that discrepancy in width, it looks like it's gone in these, which is good. And these look a little less bumpy. So I think maybe maybe Alan and his printer, whoever it is refining their process, because these look a little bit better than the 2019 U.S. Marine Corps ones that I just showed you a few minutes ago. The other thing I want to show you is he threw in a sheet of these clear overlays, which are interesting. I don't think there are many. In other words, I don't think he's got the whole overlay set in existence for every overlay in the game. This may have been sort of a trial experimental sheet to see how they work or how popular they are. He threw one in for the heck of it. I wasn't expecting it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut one of these out. And the cool thing about these is you don't need to cut them out exact like you would a paper type, but you just need to generally cut around it because they're clear. Outside the overlay outline where the color is, this is all clear, so you just kind of generally have to cut around it. And it's plastic. It doesn't have a sticky back. It's just kind of clingy, I guess, and you just slap it on the board where you want. I think the holes are clear, so you can use the holes to line them up on a board. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out one and put it on a board to show you how that works. And I'm going to trim up some of these broken ground counters to show you how they look when they're trimmed out compared to, say, a Multiman Publishing counter, which we're all used to. So we'll do a quick cut and be back in a second. All right, let's throw some of these on the board, see what they look like trimmed up. So this is my trimmer of choice. It is the old school bulletproof, drive over it with a tank and it'll survive. Oregon clippers. I know some people prefer the other ones. I have a pair of those too, but this is these are the ones I prefer. So I trimmed up some broken ground. Let's get them on this map. They trimmed up quite nice. Didn't have any problem registering them within my tank-proof clippers. And here's what they look like compared to, including the typography, compared to Multiman Publishing close-up. So there's a Multiman Publishing regular U.S. Army green and typography versus a broken ground design. At least that's a leader. Maybe I should have clipped a leader. I have a German squad here. You can see the size of the font here. The broken ground design are much easier to read when you're playing on a table with physical components. I will give them that for certain. And they trim up nicely. Now, how do they compare in size? What if you were to mix and match Multiman Publishing with, God, I can't even pick up one, with broken ground design, and you were to, pick up some of them? How would that work? That's no problem. Yeah, see, oh, okay, I got it there. Even a very small size discrepancy can cause problems. I think these were pretty close in size. If I were to use some of the ones I pointed out earlier from the die cut that were off by quite a bit, kind of in the center of the counter sheet, I would have had problems trying to pick up some of these units. Not that you would ever mix Japanese and U.S. Marine Corps except anything other than close combat, but they seem to be fine as well. So that may be a counter. a problem you encounter once in a blue moon, the discrepancy between counter sizes in the die cut process with Broken Ground Design, even within their own counter set, as opposed to stacking them, mixing them with Multiman Publishing or some other third-party publisher counter set, being able to pick them up. Probably not a huge problem, just something I thought I would point out. All right, let's test out one of these transparent overlays. Let me just throw this board down one I have out and about, and we're gonna put this overlay down. So I cut this out. All you have to do is peel it off. I didn't cut around the actual outline of the overlay. I just cut around it pretty coarsely. Peel it off, and you can see, I think you can see maybe, the holes where the line of sight would be are clear. So you can use that to line up your, I don't know where I'm going to put it. Let's just put it right here. Try to line up the hole. Try to line up the holes. That's close. That's pretty close. Getting the holes lined up. A little tricky doing that, but it just slaps down, and you play your game. You don't have to worry about using tape or a little stick 'em on the back or whatever you use to place your overlays. It just kind of adheres, and when you're done playing, get the edge, then it comes up right off the board. Now, how many applications can you use for this? You can already see me using it. I'm getting skin a little discolored where I've kind of touched it. I don't know how many times you can reuse this, but it's not like we reuse overlays all the time anyway. We use them occasionally. The biggest impediment to this is getting those holes lined up and getting on the board about where you want it. See, I'm off there. It's really tricky to do. I generally like the concept and the idea, but yeah, it's a lot of trial and error doing that. That's kind of close. You can see these two are on. These two are off. These three are off. Now it was I don't know. I didn't measure. I don't know if the scale of these hexes are exactly the same as these, or the distance between the holes is exactly the same. It might be slightly off, but in general, I like the concept. I just don't know the reusability of it, and yeah, cool idea. I don't really see it being, adopted by many players, especially to replace their entire set of overlays in the entire MMP ASL system. And people recently bought the overlay pack, which included everything. And then now Twilight of the Reich Module 16 is coming, and it has 49 additional overlays. Some of them are, huge, half board nearly. Railway systems. So, novel idea. Thanks, Alan, for sending these to me to try them out. I don't foresee him producing all the ASL overlays in this type of format. It's just tricky to do. And it's even trickier to do, I imagine, the bigger the overlay. If it was like one hex, really easy. 2 hexes, pretty easy. This is 5, and I had trouble lining up the holes, line of sight holes. And as we know, this is brush, I believe. I don't think that's woods. It's either brush or, no, it's brush, yeah. This is woods. These are woods. So this is brush, but you can see how something like woods, to get the alignment, you want to make sure the alignment's right, because it's going to affect your line of sight depending on if it's going to hit the depiction or not. So use these, if you feel like they're a good addition to your game, use them. That's fine. I don't foresee myself adopting them at all. It's just too tricky. I don't know how well they'll take up under repeated use. as well. But thanks to Alan sending me those to try them out. Okay, that's it for this quick review, overview, whatever you want to call it. I wouldn't call it a review. I mean, they're a good counter set. All of them probably have their goods and bads, or positive and negatives. I just am going on from what I observe, but I am going to do a more in-depth comparison between all the counter publishers, whether they're publishing them just as counter sheets like Broken Ground Design does, offering nationality sheets, or if they're included in modules as part of a supplemental counter sheet. There's different qualities and design choices between the different third-party publishers, and I'm going to kind of pull a sheet, representative sheet from each of the 6 or 7, however many there are, kind of do a comparison, rate them, rank them, say who's the best, who's the worst. I wouldn't say there's a worst, just which are better than the others. And I'm going to do that video here probably in a few weeks. Again, I'm not a counter guy. This is for all you counter collectors out there. So yeah, thanks to Alan for sending me the replacement sheets, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.